Hello and welcome to Investors Hangout. This weekly interaction to help you learn and understand savings and investment issues is brought to you by Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund and Value Research. Now, in today's episode, we'll dive into the buzz around index investing. What is it? How, why is it gaining traction? And how can it be a part of your portfolio? And to do that, we have with us Dhirendra Kumar. Welcome, Dhirendra.
Thank you.
We'll get into index investing and the details around it, but first up, there's a viewer's question. So why don't we begin with that? MS Murali says, my portfolio is down almost 5% and I'd like to invest more during this down period. So what kind of approach would you suggest?
One is that, very difficult. Once in a while you come across this. If you invest every month and if you have a little bit of liquidity, maybe, for fun's sake, you do it. But these kind of intermittent decline, because if you are doing your SIP, if you are onto a methodical plan, you will be picking such down markets anyway. And it's very difficult to guess. So maybe for fun's sake or just to optimize your return, maybe if you have surplus cash, keep putting. Make some rule for yourself, because there's a problem when you try and time it. And if you get lucky with it once in a while, what happens is that if you are able to pick this 5% decline and market goes down by another 10%, then goes down by another 10%, what will you do? You just might have regret. So make sure that you are in for the long run. In between, you got an opportunity. You are a good sport to actually deal with any such disappointment. Then go for it.
All right. Well, hope Murali, you've got your answer there. Now, coming to index funds. Index funds are gaining popularity among Indian investors of late. What do you think has contributed to this shift from actively managed funds to index funds?
One is that, general awareness about mutual fund. Mutual funds have become popular. Complexity of actively managed fund. Ever since SEBI said that, define yourself with clarity, there are 16 kind of equity funds. So somebody decides that, okay, he has to invest in mutual fund. He has become aware that, okay, mutual fund sahi hai and it's a good idea to be doing it. He also understands that, okay, he should be doing SIP. And he has come across all kind of, happy stories around him. When he goes about choosing one, then you have, 500 funds to choose from. That is my problem of plenty. And then problem of variety. You have a large cap, you have a large and mid cap, you have a mid cap, you have a small cap, you have a micro cap. And then, you have a all cap, you have a value fund. So when you look at these varieties, it is mind-boggling. It is unnerving for many individual investors. So simplicity, this is BSE 500, this is BSE Sensex. And it is being referred as a passive fund, but they are actually not passive, because, even within index fund, there are occasions, there are times when some of these index get reject. They are revised, they are updated. So everybody understands an index fund. It has been talked in the news, everyday news every day that Sensex went up, Nifty went up. Simplicity and cost. Third is the cost. When you hire an active, when you put your money in an actively managed fund, you are hiring a chef. And, he costs money. And then sometime he does well, sometime he does not so well. And in that sense, here you are assured that you will just do as good as the index, no more, no less.
Right. Now, for someone new to index funds, what would you say are the primary advantages of index funds vis-a-vis actively managed funds, except for the ones that you mentioned right now, or probably in greater detail?
The primary advantage is, predictability, because people don't want to, come across surprises. Because the problem of actively managed fund is that many a times the fund manager is taking a decision with good intentions, and the results don't come, are not forthcoming immediately. So if somebody decides that, okay, the small caps are very expensive and he should tilt towards something else, it might take some time. And in between he will get, the investor, if he is keeping a very keen eye on that, he might be confused that is it fine? Is he okay with his choice? Has he done the right thing? In case of index fund, you have no such anxiety. You know that this is the definition of the index. You know that every month you are putting your money, you will get as much, no more, no less. Besides the cost advantage. So I think the predictability and the advantage that the pleasure of no anxiety is quite comforting.
Okay. Yeah, so index funds are often, they're seen as a set it and forget about it kind of investment. How do you recommend they be incorporated in a well-defined portfolio?
It could be quite meaningful, in the sense that, if you're getting started and investing for your long-term money here, let it be 75%, because many a times most investors biggest problem is how to start, which one to choose. If that is causing an inertia, if that is causing that you take 6 months, 1 year to think about it, get an expert opinion, wonder about, you'll do some research. Instead of that, just go for the index fund, get started now. That's one. So that is where index fund is very helpful. And here, when you are choosing an index fund, choose a large cap fund with the lowest expense. End of the story. You don't have too much of variability in the performance. Second is that, how you should factor it in. To begin with, I would say that choose one index fund, invest 100%. Once you have done it for a while, then, reduce your index fund exposure to 75% and add it with something supplementary. The biggest lesson or experience for most investors is to get used to the madness of the market. And with index fund, you are able to get used to it.
That's for the beginners, but if somebody is already investing for a while, do the index fund bring in an added advantage to the portfolio in any way?
They do, and one should use it. One should leverage these index funds. One is that, most good portfolios, most long-term portfolios should have a meaningful allocation to large caps. And the large caps have proven their worth, that, it's difficult to choose a large cap which will beat the index. So that's one big problem to begin with.
Right.
Second is that, there are just very few ways in which a large cap fund manager adds value to beat the index, with his very strong opinion, and that also translates into drag for the performance on occasion. So if you have to invest, every investor should have a meaningful allocation to large cap. And that meaningful means about 40-50% to about 70-80%. So 45-50% of your money, long-term money, can well be invested in the large cap, and you will not be deprived of anything. For your extra return, for your superior performance, for your alpha, you should consider a mid-cap fund and a small-cap fund. So if you buy a large-cap index fund and supplement it with these funds, you are done. That's all that you need.
Okay. That will bring down the cost. And
it will bring down the cost substantially. A good part of your index allocation will match the index, and you will actually derive all the alpha from elsewhere.
Right. Now, active funds have historically outperformed the benchmark. But with this context, do you believe index fund can sustain their momentum and as a popular choice for investors?
Index fund, they still have to build their case. And index fund have not been able to, they have grown in popularity in terms of asset base for a different reason. If you look at the size of index fund, the way it has grown in the last 4 or 5 years, it is entirely because Employee Provident Fund Organization and NPS started investing in index fund. So that is why the wholesale money getting invested in index fund has led to the popularity, particularly in terms of asset size. But I really wonder, and index funds have, gained popularity among individual investors as well for the same reason. But they still have to, prove their worth through a full market cycle, because right now what I'm witnessing is a wide variety of index fund, the micro cap fund, this fund, that fund, momentum index fund. So all index are not equal. I think, I would like to look at index fund primarily as a simple vehicle to gain exposure to a market segment. So when I think of a Nifty, it's my large cap exposure to the market. When I look at BSE 500, it's my multi-cap exposure to the market. When I look at a micro cap or a small cap index fund, that is exposure to that segment of the market. When I'm looking at all the factor-based index combined, this is momentum plus this plus that, some formula overriding that. That is becoming almost, that is adding to the confusion, that is adding to the clutter, and it is not pure index. It is based on an assumption that if this thing works out nicely, then this one will benefit. And with an overlay of that factor, which is embedded in the definition of that index, that does not really make it an index fund. I would say that look at your plain vanilla experience of a mutual gaining exposure through a mutual fund, through an index fund, And for the actively managed allocation, look at the narrower segments. So, it could well be thematic fund. You are convinced of a particular sector, you are convinced of a particular story, and you want to supplement your portfolio with that. But this index exposure could be a sizable part of your portfolio.
All right, well, that's all about index funds. Hope that cleared your doubts. If you have any questions, do send in. We'll try and answer them. That's all for now. Keep watching this space for more information. If you like the show, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Take care. Bye for now.